Okay, welcome back everybody. We now have a panel discussion on closing the circle. I'm very pleased to introduce four very influential and knowledgeable experts representing different parts of the plastics industry to explore this hugely important topic with us today. I'm going from my side, so left to right from your perspective. I'll start with Antonio Protopapa, who is Operational Management Director at Corepla, the Italian consortium for the collection, recycling, and recovery of plastics packaging. Next to him, we have Bernardo Greenham, CEO of Basuracero Plastics Recycling, based in Mexico. He's come all the way over from Mexico to join us today, so he can provide an international perspective. He's also an expert in recycling of hard-to-handle waste. They're joined by Dario Praviero, who was president of Amaplast, the Italian Plastics Machinery Association, from 2019 to 2023, and he's now serving as past president with particular responsibility for environmental issues, so obviously very relevant to today's discussions. He's also closely involved in plastics recycling technology through the company's Praviero and its Cerema division, where it's involved in managing R&D and also international sales to various markets around the world, including emerging markets. Completing our illustrious panel is Marco Baggio, who is president of Unionplast, the Italian Association of Plastics Processors. So he'll provide a perspective from this critically important part of the supply chain. Marco is also sales manager at Grupo Piba, and they're a producer of rigid plastics packaging. Marco is also a very active participant in various industry associations and institutes, helping to advance the development of the plastics market. So we've got a great panel here to discuss a range of topics around closing the circle. So I've got some questions to run through. I'll invite one of the panelists to open the discussion, and then we can take it from there. So the opening question is, what does closing the circle mean in practice to your organizations, and what progress has been made in recent years? And maybe Dario, if you'd like to go first on that one. Yep.
Okay, yes. Good morning to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. The circularity of plastics is a challenge, but also an opportunity. Maybe I would like to explain these two concepts that are in some way in conflict, but in reality they are moving together. It's a challenge because to close the loop for plastics, of course, there is a necessity of developing technology. Circular means that on one end we have to redesign the product. I think we will discuss later on about this point. But on the other hand, it is necessary to develop a technology that can reincorporate the recycled material. And the recycled plastics, of course, have different characteristics versus the virgin polymers. Now, why I introduce this for our association? Just let me give you quickly a few numbers. The association Amaplast, introduced before, is working in an area that in Italy covers about 450 companies. The turnover is 4.5 billion, where at least more than 70% is versus export. And the total employees is 14,800 plus, something like that. The interesting part is that most of our companies cover basically all area of plastic industry, so it's very transversal. And it's made by a company that have a quick reply to new activity in the market. So it's a challenge as it is required to design and innovate and bring in new ideas. But on the other hand, it's a big opportunity because we can take advantages of the market and catching the future request imposed. We have to consider that also Europe is driving this concept of circularity. For sure, we are in advance, but the concept we can see is shared all over the world. All other countries are looking with great interest to the concept of plastic circularity. So for a company exporting, it's a good point if you have a product that in future will be required anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as a journalist that's covered plastics recycling and organised events on plastics recycling around the world, we look to Italy as being one of the key players, particularly when it comes to recycling technology, recycling machinery, and there's lots of great examples around the hall here. So yeah, certainly echo what you say. Antonio, what does closing the circle mean to Corepla?
Yeah, first of all, good morning, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity to speak about circularity in plastics. We in Corepla are mainly dealing with packaging, which all known is the most relevant application for plastics industry and for the regular usage. Here in Italy, we exceed more than 2 million tons of consumption, and out of this consumption, more than 1.5 million has been collected. So closing the circularity means, first of all, to guarantee the collection of the plastic packaging in order to guarantee further treatments that you can do in the industry, because collection is very important, but then we need technology for sorting. Italy is ahead in Europe in this field with more than 30 different centers that we have around the country. And then you need recycling, and I think Dario was mentioning before, technology in recycling is a fundamental, mainly when it comes to hard to recycle material. We all know that maybe recycling PET bottles is the easiest option, but then we have to deal with material and application and products that are much harder to be recycled. So closing the circle means also to improve the sorting technology in order to guarantee that this product can be also sorted and recycled as well. And last but not least, we need also to communicate what we are doing and how we can improve quantity and quality of the material that we are collecting. Consumers, citizens are a fundamental part of the value chain. We all know that if you do a very good quality in collection, you will have good quality in sorting, you will have good quality in recycling. And because recycled the plastics is going more and more in sophisticated applications, I think 20 years ago, maybe nobody would have really used any recycled plastics in application like automotive, appliances, even pharmaceutical packaging. Today it's a reality. So more quality means that all the value chain has to cooperate.
Okay, thanks so much for that. Marco, from a processes perspective, obviously, if we're going to close the circle, the processes need to be processing recycled plastic. So what's your take on that side? Are you getting the right materials, and is it the right quality of supply and reliability of supply? Are those key issues for your members?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the invitation. I represent the Italian Converter Association, and is an association that also bind together also the recyclers. And we are the one that, in a certain way, think from the very beginning, so design and then produce the packaging. Of course, we have, for this reason, together with the brand owner that used then the packaging, we feel the wide responsibility that we have on these aspects. The association, the Italian Converter Association market is made by about 3,000 companies with about 15 billion euro of turnover, with more than 40% export. And we are the second largest converters in Europe after Germany. Of course, we think that the very first step is design for recycling. So we are very concentrated on that. We have done a lot of effort in the recent years to lightweight the packaging, to simplify the packaging in order to reduce the number of polymer, the number of layers of polymer, the number of different materials we need to place, for instance, brand owner indication on the packaging. Of course, we are only on the half of the way. A lot of effort must be done in the future, but of course we are very engaged on the goals that also legislation have fixed recently. So, for instance, we are also supporting companies with EPPR and Plastica Seconda Vita certification that counts the quantity of recycled materials is on the packaging already. And we have more than 10,000 products on the market with an average of more than 70% of recycled material in it, and 1.3, close to 1.4 million tons of recycled material placed on the Italian market. That is a market of about 6 million tons. So about 20% of the raw material is already a recycled material. So here we are today, but a lot of effort must be placed on the market for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly one of the things that's come out over the past 2 days is a lot of the great work that's going on in Italy and the progress that has been made, but there's still quite a long way to go, and particularly with new PPWR regulations, which we'll talk about, setting even higher targets. So my next question is, what do you see as the main obstacles to increasing plastic circularity? And I'd like to start off with you, Bernardo, because I know that one of the areas you focus on is those harder to recycle plastics, the ones that, maybe not the low-hanging fruit, which are already dealt with, but if we're going to raise these rates, we're going to have to deal with some of those more difficult plastics.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to thank the organization. I feel pretty honored to be the only Latin American speaker for this edition, so thank you very much. Yes, there is a lot of tasks to recycle the hard-to-recycle waste that is getting bigger, the problem. For example, I specialized in recycling flexible packaging as BOPP films. That is one kind of package that is growing a lot around the world and is very difficult to recycle, not because when it's monomaterial, it can be recycled easily by mechanical process, but it's very difficult to pick the materials from everywhere we can find it, and then also it's difficult to find a market for these kind of products till now, no? So I guess that for sure designing for recycling is very important, but also recognize that everyone has to play his role in the different stages of responsibility that is needed to do, no? Consumers, producers, and also government who is managing sometimes the waste. Everyone has to play its role. And for stakeholders, it's very important to understand that it's more opportunities to get back in the value chain recycled products than only primary packaging, no? And I think that would be one of the key points to help getting back those kind of materials into the chain.
Okay, thanks so much for that. Does anybody else want to add anything on the obstacles facing the industry to close the circle and how they can be overcome?
Yeah, I think one important comment is also the competition versus virgin polymers. We have seen in the last 5 years, of course, a growing usage of recycled material in some application, mainly packaging and mainly for PET. But when it comes to the other material, it's much more complex because the competition with virgin material is becoming stronger and stronger. And when you approach a sophisticated application with a product which is coming from recycling, it's more difficult. It's costing more. Maybe it's less efficient. Maybe it's also lower in performance. And so for this reason, I think we need more regulatory support. We need maybe some credits when it comes to use this material, a lower VT value, so some incentives that can really help in promoting the circularity of the material. Otherwise, the competition will be unfair.
And that kind of leads me on to the next question, which is the economical viability of plastics recycling. And we've seen that's been quite difficult and quite volatile. And at the moment, a lot of plastics recyclers are going through a difficult time. So what can be done to improve that situation? And maybe Marco can answer that first.
It's important for our perspective to fix what is the circle we want to close. I mean, how wide, and because from our point of view, the old polymers converting is the circle. What I mean, if we want to really close every little internal circle in the every single application, it will be an enormous effort that will probably not permit us to take the quantity target we have, like 50 or 55% recycling. Because if you want to really upgrade the quality to close every single application, you on the same time you produce a lot of waste that then have very low and difficult application. So if we decide that the circle is any application of the recycled material that can avoid the use of a raw material, as a fossil-based material, then it will be much easier for all the players to focus on efficiency and the high quantity. And the high quantity, the final quantity, is the main target that we have. Okay, then let's the market organize itself how to get the target. If you fix too much precise sub-target on the market, like the content of recycled material for every single material, every single application, probably you get the result to crystallize the actual market and to avoid and to deprime the new development of the recycling technology, of the new material, etc. So if we take a look to the complete cycle, probably we will have much opportunity to get the final quantity target, and through the efficiency of the whole system. So for our perspective is sometimes dangerous to give too much importance to the so-called high-quality recycling. Of course, when it's very easy to do that, like for bottles, okay, is a correct target. But when then we want to do the same concept, to apply the same concept to every single application, then can be very costly, and then we probably will not give us the opportunity to get the quantity.
Yeah, very valid point, very interesting. Dario, you're selling to plastics recyclers, supplying them with cutting-edge machinery around the world. Obviously, you're talking to them about their business. How do you view the sort of viability of plastics recycling? Because obviously, it then it affects your business as well.
Well, I think we have to reconsider the option of the comment from Marco that represent in some way the customers of recycling companies and also the company made by Antonio, the viability. In this moment, there are for sure some challenge because the request from plastic industries is to have stability in the supply of recycled material. This is the first challenge. And stability means not only volumes, but also price. And because the parameter that may have an influence on the value of the recycled polymer are, of course, in some kind disconnected from the one of the virgin polymer, this is created the situation that everybody around the table has well known. On the other hand, from a technology supplier, we can say that in some way it is possible to do a lot of things because we can deliver technology that starts from very, let's say, low quality material and making an upcycle, bringing them to the request of the customer, as Marco said. But this is, in most case, impact with an excessive cost. So now these two different, if you want, requests, we need in some way to bring closer. And to bring closer, of course, is a long process because we need to reconsider thinking the packaging. But for sure, there is a key point. Plastic recycler need to have more material with less complexity. Because less complexity means that you can scale up size of recycling plant, but for sure making it as a simpler chain. If you have a look today, even to a PET line is an extremely complicated sequence of operation because they have to take care of the complexity of the packaging today. If it is possible, but of course this is involving a cross-activity within different industries that may consider different requirement and priority. But for sure, it should be a direction. Try to make it simpler and more volume. In this case, the price can go down, the quality can go up, and of course, probably try to be closer to the request of our customers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Antonio, there is this situation where, we're being asked to increase recycled rates, and there's pressure from legislation and from the markets to increase recycling. But as we've talked about, it is quite difficult for recyclers at the moment. So, do you see that as a short-term thing? Do you see a bright future for the companies involved in Corepla in the medium to long term?
I think for the recycling industry, it will be harder for the next 5 to 10 years anyway.
Okay.
Because the challenging posed by the new regulations that we have introduced in Europe are definitely challenging these companies. First of all, because not only packaging, but all the plastics industry has to work versus circularity. Now, the title of this event is Shaping a Sustainable Future for Plastics. And we have not to think only about packaging, because packaging is maybe even the application which is ahead in these respects. But if we look at other application sectors, agriculture, for example, building industry, automotive, appliances, all these applications have a large use of plastics, complicated plastics, multi-material material that have to be sorted and recycled. So I think there is a huge challenge for the future. There will be certainly needs for investment. We have seen before, we are talking about €1 billion of investments in mechanical and chemical recycling. So there will be, of course, opportunities for growing. And we have not to forget that we are competing with other materials who are trying to take the lead in some applications. Okay, we see paper growing in certain application. We see glass who is looking for market share. And for this reason, plastics industry has to be really competitive in terms of cost and in terms of performance.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Bernardo, how do you see the viability of plastics recycling in the regions where you operate? Is it seeing similar challenges to Europe? Or?
Yeah, different, but it's very challenging for recyclers right now in Mexico, and I think there is a big crisis now happening for recyclers around the world, and I believe that Europe is leading the world with regulation and setting the standards to understand how to apply circularity into businesses to get the opportunity to participate in this new market, because we need to understand that circularity is not only a tool to insert in business as usual. We need to understand that business need to transform all the way they are designing, producing, getting the products, and then packaging them to apply a true circularity, because circularity begins far away from packaging and ends far away from the final package, no? Because if we don't have products that help to sustain life in many ways, circularity is not happening actually, no? Because we need to understand that firstly, no? So in Mexico, we have a lot of problems around formality, for example, in recycling, that is creating a chaos about how you can manage a recycling company, because you have to pay for waste in cash, or you don't have the way to put supply chain in a contract, or things like that are the problems we have in Mexico. No? But in the other hand, I have been working in this for the last 20 years, and there is a huge opportunity for Latin America to supply raw materials to Europe that has the challenges actually happening to for the implementation of all the tasks that stakeholders has right now, and that's the reason I believe that countries as Mexico that has access to a lot of waste and the capability to classify those waste with prices that are cheaper than in Europe can sell PCR certified materials with high quality to help Europe to find its way, no?
Okay, great. Yeah. So next question is on PPWR, which has been a recurring theme for the past 2 days at this conference. So I'll ask Marco first of all. So what are your views on PPWR? Do you think that it will help to close the circle?
Mm-hmm. Interesting to understand how other regions are looking at our legislation as a
yes, exactly. Yes,
as an indication.
I thought the same thing.
So,
yes.
We are not happy with PPWR at all, because, for instance, we have not time to enter in a general discussion, but just a couple of examples. We have fixed target of recycling, that it is good, the good part of the legislation. But for instance, in the same times, we ban completely few applications. For instance, the application of PET trays for fruit and vegetables. These trays are very easy, well designed, very easy to recycle, monolayer, and champion of sustainability, of circularity, because they already have made by 50 or 80% of recycled PET. So what better examples of circularities we have? Probably only the bottles can do better. And this application has been banned on the PPWR. No reason for that. Second examples, a secondary packaging, so the films we need to stabilize all the goods we send, we transport in Europe. Okay, they are stabilized with stretch film. Okay, this application might be switched to reusable films. How can you imagine to reuse a stretch film that has already been stretched and filmed on a pallet? Okay, so who can imagine something like that? Is somebody that have no idea how the market is functioning, how is made a product, what we need, what the market needs. Okay, those are only two examples of how the legislation has been put together in only 18 months without a good analysis before, and with a lot of questions that are placed on the market, because if we have to face this situation, probably we will lose quantity, recycled quantity. We will not have recycling in the future with a better price, and because we cut the better example of circularity we have. So I think there will be the real necessity for maybe in the next years to reopen the legislation, and with the right collaboration of all the players and the markets, find out probably the modification we need to get the objective without destroying the good parts we have already done. Because, for instance, in Italy, Corepla has already fixed a PET trays selection and recycles market. So this will be disappeared. So there are players on the market. They are already invested on that. They will be not able to do the product anymore. So I think we really need to rethink about the legislation and correct a lot of aspects.
Yeah, I mean, certainly on Tuesday we had a legal expert from Keller and Heckman trying to explain the legislation and the complexities around it, and as you say, the exemptions and the bans, and an awful lot still to be decided, a lot of detail. So yeah, certainly seems a very confusing bit of legislation.
Yeah. And on the other side, I don't think the recycled material will be used if they are cheaper. I don't think they will be never cheaper than the raw material. Okay, let's say clearly. What does it mean? It means that, of course, the obligation of the use of a certain quantity of recycled material is something that we need. Also, as a converter, we are ready to do that. We are already doing that. But this that means that it will be possible in any application. So very sophisticated application like food application, there will be not possible to be done with the mechanical recycling, like the PP application Bernardo was talking before. So this means that, of course, we need also chemical recycling, and the PPWR again is a lost occasion to introduce the missing part of legislation about the chemical recycling we need. Otherwise, without that, we will never be able to introduce 10% of recycled PP on the food application.
Sure. Thanks so much for that. Does anybody have anything else to add on PPWR?
No, I think we can only agree on this aspect.
Okay.
So there is nothing to add. Maybe what is missing is that also on consumers and citizens, the PPWR will have an impact, and people maybe are not really aware of what's going on. We will discussing about this regulation as experts. We talk about these exhibitions, or we talk inside our industry, but nobody is really making clear to the consumers the relevant impact that this regulation will have, not only on plastics, but on all packaging. And I think this is a missing part. When I was speaking about communication, this is a fundamental part that we are missing today. Consumers and citizens needs to be aware and maybe move from the bottom versus the regulators in order to guarantee that what Marco was mentioning before, but even many other implications that are related to the PPWR are really making an impact on our daily life, as they already do. Look at that bottle and the tethered cap. So they have an impact, but I don't think there is really a knowledge around the consumers on the impact that this will have.
Yesterday we had a discussion on the importance of design for recycling, and Marco, you've already talked about the importance of designing for sustainability and recycling right from the outset. Perhaps Bernardo, I know it's an area where you work as well. How important do you see this, and what should be the main priorities when you're designing for recycling?
I think it's very important. I have been listening customers asking for recycled materials with the quality they need for their processes, but my question always is what you are doing with the original application to we can take this product into that quality, because if you don't consider what's happening next in the next life of the product you designed before, how you can put it back into the change with quality, that is a question that I always do. And I believe that it's very important to understand that that design, it is not just for the package, because what is need to transform is the way we are consuming. And that is also a design that is needed to help to solve this problem. If we continue to consume in this way, it's very difficult to handle all the waste we create. And for that, we need to understand also that for me, for my perception, recycling is not the solution. It's just a very helpful tool that needs to collaborate with other stages of the same problem for transition to a different way of consuming and being able to recycle what is needed, but not everything. It's just what is we're capable to do it with a positive footprint. Okay, thank you.
And picking up on that collaboration point, I think we can all agree that progress in improving circularity depends on collaboration from throughout the supply chain, from product design to production to recycling to reuse. And obviously events like this conference and Greenplast help bring different parts of the industry together to collaborate. But I'll ask you, Antonio, do you think that collaboration is happening enough? And if not, what can be done to improve it and make it more effective?
No, collaboration is happening. Of course, is never enough when we consider the results that we are getting. So we have to look the investments that needs to be done, the support that we as a company can do in order to guarantee that from the consumer we arrive to the right companies for recycling. And along the value chain, the cooperation, for example, with the waste management companies is fundamental, as it is the cooperation with the brand owners, because they have the real power to design the packaging for their product. And of course, we all know that packaging is the business card for a product, and they will never change their attitude versus the marketing tool, which is so important. But on the other way, there is no alternative than to design the packaging in a way that can guarantee a circularity. Trace is one of the easy example, but we have many, many others, but trace can be as an example. We in Italy are definitely collecting, sorting, and recycling trays, but even so, we are facing troubles when it is a multi-layer tray, because in that case, you don't really know which is the material that you are dealing with. So what happens is that you have to deal with the user of the trays, with the producer of the trays, in order that they design a product which can be really recyclable according to the European rules, collecting, sorting, recycling, selling. So if you can fulfill all these 4 rules, then you can really talk about recyclability, and along the value chain, the cooperation, it's vital.
Sure, sure. Dario, a question for you on technology side. What do you see as the key technology requirements for closing the circle? Yesterday we had some really interesting talks about the use of AI. Clearly, I don't know, within the plastics industry, I see most of the AI stuff going on in the plastics recycling and plastic sorting.
Yes, correct. I also believe that, again, of course, there is a lot of technology because, as we say, to match what has been brought on the table by Marco Antonio, there are several technologies. But as, let's say, an expert in mechanical recycling, I believe in this moment there are 2 areas of main interest. We have to consider that mechanical recycling is a very convenient solution for recycling. Of course, we will not, mechanical recycling cannot reply to all questions put on the table by Marco. I share his point, it is correct. But mechanical recycling is a faster solution, almost ready available, and with very performant cost. So it is important that we have a correct balance between the chemical and the mechanical. They are complementary. Now, what are the most interesting technology for the mechanical recycling in order to satisfy at least a part of the question are basically 2. One for sure is the introduction of AI. It's a basic image recognition or analysis of image. Up to now, sorting, just a quick point, has been based on reflected spectra. So infrared or close to RGB. But this is a solution where we cannot identify the packaging. AI, basically, where we have an analysis of the image, is a technology derived by, frankly speaking, the automated driving. So a big company develop, and let's say industry is using the same algorithm. This is a way to boost the sorting, and particularly to fulfill the first requisition of a project which replied to the EFSA request of having to produce a recycled polymer suitable for being contact for food, is that the packaging is used for food. So that's the basic. And this AI can reply to this first point. So very interesting. The second are the technology that for polymers that are not the PET. PET is already a suitable technology approved for producing polymer in direct contact with food. So it's well known. There are a lot of characteristics and limits. The challenge is to develop a system which similarly they will work for polystyrene, polyethylene, polypropylene, to try to give at least in a short time a reply to the industry, because there is the request. Is the request coming from a law obligation? I agree. There is a lot of comment behind this. It's not my role to judge if it is correct or incorrect. But it is what it is. That's it. If we have to satisfy this request, we have at least to find a solution in the short term. And as you may know, there are already a lot of projects moving in this direction. So to take the model used for the PET, for the polyester, and transfer to the other polymer. I believe these are the 2 most interesting technologies that are in progress in our industries.
Yeah, thanks so much indeed for that. And that kind of leads me on to my next question. I see we're pretty much out of time, but I'll just go on to one final question, which is, as you talked about the growing interest in chemical recycling, and we heard it in Martina's opening talk this morning, as either an alternative or a complementary technology to mechanical recycling. So Antonio, what do you see as the kind of future for mechanical recycling and chemical recycling
How many hours do we have?
Well, actually, we're over time already, so
All right, okay.
maybe 2 minutes.
Okay. As Dario was mentioning, mechanical recycling is the most effective way for recycling those products that can be recyclable. We should never forget plastics is the only material which is mechanically recycled. Because if we think about aluminium, iron, steel, glass, even paper, they destroy the material first and then they rebuild it. While in mechanical recycling, the polymer remains as it is. So chemical recycling is a kind of a copy and paste of the other technologies that are already used for the other materials. And it comes only when it is necessary. Sure. Not only because of the costs that are involved, which is definitely higher, the energy intensive that you need to use, but because it makes no sense to destroy something in order to build it up again. But PPWR, SUP, and all the regulations that have been introduced in Europe are forcing the polymer industry to look at the end of life of their material and to introduce systems that are able to reply to the needs of the recycling industry. If we have to go in the food contact with polymers that have been designed and used in applications which were non-food, the only way to guarantee that they can be reused in food application is to go with the chemical recycling. Of course, there are different stages, different technology, different level of investments, but for polyolefins mainly, so when it comes to flexible, this is vital.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed for that. Yeah, I think we can see that using them in sensible way, in parallel, is the way forward.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, unfortunately, we're out of time. I think we've got some fantastic views here. I think we could probably talk for the rest of today on this topic, but unfortunately, we're out of time. We have to draw a line under it. But please join me in thanking Antonio, Bernardo, Dario, and Marco for taking their time to share their views and to have a really interesting discussion on the ongoing development and work towards closing the circle. So thanks very much indeed to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.